In the heart of Lagos, where the city never truly sleeps, there lived a man named Chief Ogedengbe, a man whose wealth could fill 1,000 hands, yet whose heart was never satisfied. He was known across Ikeja for his grand house, his shining cars, and his generous gifts to the church. Every Sunday, he would sit in the front pew, dressed in white, his gold wristwatch catching the morning sun. People looked at him with admiration. Some said he was blessed by God. Others whispered that his heart was too heavy for peace. But none of them knew the secret he carried, a secret buried beneath the very ground of the church where he prayed. Chief Ogedengbe had come from humble beginnings. Many years ago, he was a struggling trader in Mushin, selling spare parts by the roadside. He had known hunger, heat, and hopeless nights. When fortune finally smiled upon him, he swore never to return to poverty. He worked hard, invested wisely, and soon money began to flow like the tides of the Lagos Lagoon. But with wealth came fear. Every night Chief Ogedengbe would wake up to count his money, hiding it in different corners of his mansion, under beds, behind portraits, even inside the walls. Still, he was not at peace. One rainy evening, after a long service, Chief sat alone inside the old church at Agege. The candles flickered gently, and the voice of the choir still lingered in the air. He looked at the altar, the wooden structure where so many had prayed and wept. He whispered softly to himself, This is the safest place in the world. No thief will dare come here. Even God will watch over it." And so, late that night when the city slept, Chief Ogedengbe returned with a small wooden chest. Inside were bundles of money, crisp notes, neatly tied and sealed in plastic. He knelt before the altar, his heart beating fast. "Father in heaven, I'm not stealing from you. I'm only keeping it safe in your house." With his own hands, he lifted the church tiles, dug a shallow hole, and buried the chest beneath the altar. Then he covered it, cleaned the floor, and walked away into the night, feeling as though he had hidden his soul. From that day, Chief Ogedengbe prayed harder than before. He gave offerings with a proud smile, always saying, "My heart is in this church." And indeed, it was. But as months passed, his fear grew. He began to dream strange dreams of shadows standing near the altar, of hands reaching up from the ground. Each time he walked into the church, he could almost hear whispers under his feet. And yet, he said nothing. No one could know his secret. Not even Mama Remy, his wife, who noticed how restless he had become. "My husband, what troubles you these days? You no longer sleep well." "It's business, my dear, just business." But in truth, it wasn't business. It was the burden of hidden wealth and the fear of losing it. He thought he had buried money in the safest place on earth, but he had also buried his peace. And so begins the story of Chief Ogedengbe, the man who trusted gold more than grace, the man who buried his money in the church but found something far more valuable hidden beneath his own heart.
Months passed, and the old pastor, Reverend Ajay, retired after years of faithful service. The church members gathered one bright Sunday morning to welcome a new shepherd, Pastor Daniel, a humble, soft-spoken young man in his early 30s. He smiled easily, spoke gently, and always began his sermons with the same words. "Let love lead, for love is the only offering that never burns." The congregation loved him, everyone except Chief Ogedengbe. Chief respected the new pastor, but deep inside, fear began to grow again. Pastor Daniel had big dreams for the church, dreams that required change. "My brothers and sisters, our church needs new life. The walls are cracked, the floor is weak, and the roof leaks whenever it rains. We must rebuild." Those words struck Chief Ogedengbe like thunder. Rebuild? The floor. The same floor under which his money lay buried? That night he couldn't sleep. He walked through his mansion, pacing from room to room, whispering to himself, "No, no one must touch that floor. Not yet. I must find a way to stop it." He tried to discourage the pastor. "Pastor, perhaps we should wait. The economy is not stable. Renovations can wait till next year." "Chief, I understand your concern, but this is God's house. When something is broken, we fix it. We must trust Him." Chief nodded, pretending to agree, but inside his fear was turning into panic. He didn't know that sometimes when God wants to free a man, He shakes the ground beneath his feet.
Weeks later, a heavy Lagos rainstorm struck the city. The sky darkened and the streets flooded within minutes. Pastor Daniel rushed to the church to save what he could from the leaking roof. He called for help, and soon the congregation gathered with buckets and mops. Chief Ogedengbe arrived too, pretending to help, but his eyes were fixed on the altar. "God, please, not tonight, please." Water was seeping through the roof, dripping near the altar, the exact spot of his secret. When the others left after midnight, Chief stayed behind, pretending to pray. When the rain grew heavier, he quietly locked the door and knelt down. He lifted the tiles one by one, his hands trembling. He wanted to check the wooden chest to make sure it was safe. Lightning flashed through the windows and thunder roared across the sky. As he leaned forward to touch the buried spot, the ground gave way beneath him. He slipped, struck his head on the altar, and everything went dark. The church fell silent, except for the sound of rain and the beating of his heart slowing down. At dawn, Pastor Daniel returned to the church. He found the doors still locked from the inside. Confused, he called out, Chief Ogedengbe, are you here?" There was no answer. When the doors were forced open, they found Chief lying on the floor, unconscious, his clothes soaked, his hands still on the altar. They rushed him to the hospital. Back at the church, workers began cleaning the mess left by the storm. As they lifted the tiles near the altar, someone shouted, "Pastor, there's something buried here!" They dug carefully, and soon a wooden chest appeared. Inside were bundles of old, wet naira notes, eaten by moisture, the ink fading. The congregation stood in stunned silence. Whispers filled the air. Who could have done this? Why here? Pastor Daniel said nothing. He simply closed the chest and looked toward the hospital. He knew in his heart that the truth would reveal itself, as it always does. When Chief Ogedengbe opened his eyes, the first face he saw was Pastor Daniel's. The young man sat beside him, calm and quiet, holding his hand. "Pastor, the money, is it still there?" "Yes, Chief, it was found, but it is ruined, all of it." Chief closed his eyes, tears sliding down his face. For years he had guarded that money like a child, but in one night it was gone, wasted, forgotten, and meaningless. "I thought I was keeping it safe for God. I thought I was wise." "Chief, God does not need what we hide. He blesses what we give. The altar is not for money. It is for hearts that are open." Those words broke something inside Chief Ogedengbe, the chains of his own greed. He spent weeks recovering, and when he returned to church, he stood before the congregation, trembling but free. "My brothers and sisters, I have sinned. I buried my money under this altar, thinking it was safe, but I buried my peace with it. Now I know. True wealth is not in what we hide, but in what we share." There was silence, then the sound of weeping, not from shame, but from understanding. From that day, Chief Ogedengbe changed. He used what was left of his wealth to rebuild the church, not for pride, but from gratitude. He built homes for orphans and fed the hungry. And whenever anyone thanked him, he would smile and say, "Don't thank me. I am just a man who once buried his money and found his soul instead."